Hello, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'm going to be finishing my mini-series and reviewing the 5th episode and the finale of the HBO mini-series Chernobyl. So if you've seen the previous reviews, this show has been one of the most incredible and one of the most powerful shows I have ever seen ever in the history of television. I think that this story has needed to be told for a really long time in this way. Having it on a huge network with a huge budget and an incredible cast and an incredible crew of production people and story writers, and just really doing justice to those that served at Chernobyl and helped stop one of the greatest disasters of all time, and the people and the events that took place on that night and the time afterwards. So the finale in the 5th episode goes through exactly what happened that night when the reactor exploded, and it does so in excruciating detail. It goes through step by step every fatal flaw that happened that caused this disaster to take place, all the human error, all the mechanical error, all the things that led to this terrible situation happening. And this episode in particular had the best performance by Jared Harris. It was one of the best performances I've seen on television in a long time. The courtroom drama that took place in this episode, while it is, an account of what actually happened and them going through each detail and everything that was happening, was so compelling. I know that some people may watch this episode, and if you're not fully invested in the story and you're more about just the disaster itself, you may find some of the elements a little boring, but I thought it was masterfully made. I think it was incredibly written. I think the fact that they didn't spare any detail, they didn't cut corners in trying their best to explain what happened, it was totally compelling to me. I was totally enthralled in what was going on, them going through it and just leading to what was actually going to happen, what led to this disaster. And one of the overarching themes that has led throughout this whole series is the idea that the Soviet Union and the government in charge, or if we're going to take the whole idea at a bigger scale, anyone who's in charge, any level of power or authority, should never withhold information at the detriment of its populace or the people it's ruling over. And you see that on such a powerful and real scale in this miniseries, seeing just how the failure of many levels of management and party leaders and everyone in the Soviet Union refusing to accept what happened, refusing to let the community, the academic community, the global community know about this disaster, could have been so much worse, and is the only particular reason why this event happened in the first place. And they're explaining everything that's happening inside the control room, and you're seeing those in charge of the nuclear plant pushing it to places where it should never have gone, just in the name of looking good to party officials, looking good to people so that they can move up, get better positions, and move on. It's horrible. Watching it is almost as powerful as any of the other episodes, seeing these things happen, these people in power just being corrupted by greed, hubris, pride, and risking lives of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the process. And some of the imagery in this episode was absolutely incredible. I thought the beginning of the episode, where they're showing the citizens of the city playing, it's when the city is most alive, it's lively, it's growing, you see this life in this flourishing city, and knowing that it's going to be ripped away from these people, the city is going to be turned into a wasteland essentially, and just that image itself is powerful, having gone through this entire series. There's a shot where Boris is talking out in between the trial and everything that's going on, and he talks to him because he wants him to tell the truth, he wants him to stand up and just really say what needs to be said, and he has a caterpillar crawl across his hand, and you're seeing this delicate balance of life, and you're seeing these characters also deteriorate. Both these characters are obviously contracted some high levels of radiation. They're going to die from this radiation. And him looking at, fresh life, saying that it's beautiful and everything like that, it was pretty powerful, seeing this rugged, old, kind of Soviet stalwart character seeing a caterpillar and being like, oh, well, that's beautiful, seeing so much death and destruction of life throughout this series. I thought that this show excellently gave tribute and how he went out there even knowing that his whole reputation would be completely shattered by telling the truth, and having gone through the ghosts of having done terrible things, having lied about this event previous to the hearing, going out there and saying what happened in the face of true banishment from everything he's ever known, and then ultimately having to make the greatest sacrifice. Basically just his death, him taking his own life, led to possibly saving hundreds of thousands of other lives, and having people take notice. People in the academic community could not hide from the fact that this was something that was happening. They needed to fix the different reactors in the other parts of the Soviet Union. And I think that part of the show is something that is really important. Because while the show is doom and gloom and despair and some horrible imagery and some just the worst parts of humanity, some of the things that humanity has created that has just been terrible and detrimental to the earth and everyone, seeing the other parts of humanity, the part that is willing to risk everything to help each other out and to help save lives. And that balance is something that's not lost on me, and I don't think on viewers you should see it, and you shouldn't forget about those that really were heroes. People back then that maybe weren't in the history books, people you didn't know about. I didn't know about most of these people. I knew about the bare bones information of Chernobyl, but this show has shed light on some of the true heroes that risked everything, gave everything just to save lives. And there's a line in this episode where a character talks about those who gave their lives, and they gave their lives, and the people that died were there to save others. They died saving others. They died trying to help their friends and family and everyone in the area during the disaster. And I think that's important. I think at the end of this episode, when they show the real life footage and they tell you the story of what happened to the characters and what they based everything off of and some of the changes they made to fit the show and some of the things the Soviet Union did to just totally discredit, totally undermine what really happened, not shed just how horrible this event was, just to save face. It's definitely worth a watch. I think if there's any episode that's worth watching, it's this finale. So all I have left to say about this miniseries is that it is one of the best shows I have ever seen on television. I think it's incredible. I'm so glad that people have taken notice. It's skyrocketed to the top of the charts on IMDb and other mediums to see just how masterfully well made it is, just how compelling it is, how accurate it is in many ways. I know they changed some things and there's some issues that people have with the show, but for the most part, it tried its best to stay true to eyewitness accounts, try to source out the information, try to avoid things that are conjecture, trying not to over-dramatize things, and just focus on the reality. Because the reality of the situation is just as horrible as any story. It's just as incredible as any fiction. And at the end of the day, I really recommend this. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check out this series. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. And did you love this series just as much as me? Did you find this story as compelling and as incredible as I have? I know I sound like a broken record, but it is just so good, and I cannot stop praising the technical aspects and the powerful and just impact and importance of this series. It's just so good.